Hey guys, what's up? It's Muaaz here and welcome back to another video. So a few months ago, I actually made a video on how to use Sony Vegas Pro for beginners, and a lot of you guys wanted me to do the same video but for Photoshop, so that's what this video is going to be about. If you guys do end up enjoying the video, then please be sure to leave a like and maybe even subscribe, as it really does help the channel grow. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. So logically, the first thing that I should teach you guys is how to actually create a new document. So to do that, all you have to do is go to File and then click on New. And the hotkey for that is just Control and then N on your keyboard. So for name, it's obviously what you want to name the document, so I'm just going to name it tutorial for the video purpose. For preset, don't worry about that, you don't have to mess with anything right there. The width and height are actually going to be the dimensions of the document, so if you want to make a 1080p wallpaper or something along those lines, you would do 1920 and then it would automatically change to 1080. But say you want to do like a 720p document or something, then you can do 1280. Bottom number might not change depending on that reason, but then you can just do 720 and then you'd have a 720p document, but I want to do 1080, so I'm just going to quickly change it back. So right next to that, we actually have the units, and most people would tend to just use pixels when doing online work, but if you're trying to make something that you would maybe want to print out like on a piece of paper or something like that in real life and you have the exact measurements for it, then you can change it to whatever unit you might be using, whether that's inches, centimeters, or really any of these options that are available. A real life example of when you might be wanting to use inches or centimeters instead of pixels would be maybe if you want to make a document 8.5 by 11 inches so that it could fit on like a complete piece of printer paper. And so basically you can set those up to however you want them. For resolution, it really just depends on what you're working on, but the higher the better. Most of the time you'll just be fine with having it at 72. I just tend to do all my projects in 300 in case I ever do want to print something and I want the resolution to be good and it doesn't like become grainy if you like stretch the pictures out and stuff. So I'm fine with 300. You'll probably be fine with 72, but I know a lot of you guys are going to use 300 because I'm using it, and that's fine. Make sure that your color mode is set to RGB color. If you set it on anything else, you might notice that your brushes are different and stuff like that, and you're honestly just going to get frustrated, so trust me, RGB color is the way to go. I never really mess with any of this stuff right here. And for background contents, I always do transparent, but essentially this just starts with whatever you're going to have in the background. If you do transparent, you can add this stuff later on. If you do white, then you start with the white background, and background color I think is you'll be starting with the color that's on the bottom right here. But from there, once you have your like project set, all you have to do is just click on OK and you should be good to go. So I'm just going to quickly show you guys how to save your work, and to do that, all you have to do is go to File, and from here you can do a lot of stuff like create a new document, which I just showed you guys, open up a document that you might want to edit or make changes to. You can browse the mini bridge and stuff, which I don't really mess with. You can open a document, you can close what you do have open, or you can hit save as. So we're gonna hit save as, and from here we're actually allowed to save it as a Photoshop document or a PSD, and the benefit of that is that you'll actually be able to edit the project in Photoshop later on or in the future or something like that. But say that you just want to export your work into like one final file, you can just save it as a PNG, a JPEG, or really anything you want to do, but I'm just gonna quickly save it to my desktop as a PSD, and I'll show you guys how to export once again later on when the video is over. But overall, I recommend just doing both because that's what I do, and really why not? It's not gonna take up that much space. So the next thing that I do want to show you guys is how you can actually place a file or a picture that you have saved on your computer into Photoshop, and there's actually a couple of ways that you can do this. One of the most easiest ways to do this is just go to File and then just click on place. Once you click on place, you should like be able to browse your computer to find something that you want to place into your document. So I'm just going to do this picture of shoes, just going to click on it and click on place. As you can see, the shoes are right here in the document. Now say you don't want to do it that way, all you have to do is just open up your file explorer and just look for the picture that way. So I'm just going to quickly find them one more time. I found them, and now I'm just going to quickly drag, drop, there you go, same thing. It's just, it depends whichever way you want to do it. But now that we've actually got a sample image to play with in our project, we can learn more about the edit tab. So once you do have it placed where you want it, you just have to hit this check mark. Don't worry about like filling in the blank spaces and stuff, I'll cover that later. But for now we can go to the edit tab, and this is really cool because it allows you to do a ton of things. So right here we can just do undo place, and right here look, the image is gone, and if you want to bring it back, you just do redo place, and essentially this is just going to allow you to go back a step if you messed up, or go forward one step if you like messed up on messing up. And right next to that you have step backwards and step forwards, and essentially those are the exact same things as undo and redo, except it allows you to do it more than one single time. And also in the edit tab we also do have the normal cut, copy, paste, and all those functions, but most of the time you just get those memorized in your head really fast and you don't really ever have to use those at all. And something that most people actually tend to love about Photoshop is the transform features, and these are nice because you can rotate the image or flip them or whatever you really want to do. So let's say I want to rotate this image 180 degrees, so essentially it should just be an upside down version of the image, and there you go. Say we want to flip it sideways or something like that, we can do the same thing by going to transform and flip it horizontally, and as you can see it flipped sideways. Say we want to bring it back up, we can just quickly go ahead and do the same thing but just rotate it 180 degrees one more time. As you can see, the shoes are facing a different way because the ultra boost text is backwards, and say we want to bring bring it back, same thing, just go ahead and redo what you did, flip it horizontally, and you're good to go. So I guess I can quickly run you guys through some of the more important hotkeys on your keyboard. So Control A is actually just going to be select all. So as you can see, there's a little like snake thing going around my thing that basically shows that I've selected everything. Control D actually deselects everything. Control R brings up a ruler, so mine just went away, but I just brought it back right now. And this is really useful to use as like guidelines when you want to line something up evenly. So as you can see, I can just bring this down, and the final, like these blue lines don't show up in the final picture, so you can use them when you're like making the picture, but then they're gone when you actually like export the picture into like a PNG or a JPEG. And to get rid of those, all you have to do is just go up here, click on the move button, and then just go ahead and move them out if you don't want them anymore. So that's all I have to do, and now they're gone. So I just showed you guys ruler, I believe. So the next thing up is the transform tool. So Control T, and this is essentially just selects your entire like layer that you have right now, and from here you're actually able to free transform. And this is probably one of the tools that you'll find yourself most using, as it's going to allow you to make pictures like bigger or smaller. So as you can see, I can stretch the image out to make sure it fits the dimensions of the picture, but as you can see, it kind of gets a little grainy if you don't do it right. So as you can see, like if I was to just stretch it out like this, it obviously doesn't look that good. So let's say I completely get out of that, but hit Control T one more time, but this time hold shift on your keyboard and then drag it out, and the picture stays the same and it doesn't like get stretched out too far on one side. So as you can see, I was able to stretch it out nicely. Just click on the check, it fills up everything and it doesn't look weird at all. So essentially holding shift while dragging on the image is just going to keep its like proportions the same and make it look normal instead of stretched. But if you do want it to look stretched, then by all means go for it, and that's something that you might have to do sometimes if your image isn't big enough. So next up we have the image tab, and from here you can do a ton of stuff as well. And one of my favorite things to do here is actually like do adjustments to like shadows, lighting, hue and saturation and stuff like that. And sometimes this stuff is actually like faded out, so to fix that you have to go right here to your layer and then right click on it and then click on rasterize. Once you do that, you'll actually be able to go back here and everything should be available. So let's say I want to bump up the hue and saturation, I click on that and I'll see this show up. So if I want to bump up the saturation, I'll just drag it up, and as you can see, the colors are getting more vibrant. Obviously it looks pretty bad right here and it looks too dark right here, but bumping it up just a bit doesn't make it look too bad. And for lightness, you can make it darker or lighter like the image without making the image go completely black or white. And the hue is just make a certain color pop out more in the image than how the normal image looks like. But I don't want to do any of that. I just want to hit cancel and just show you guys what you can do in the image tab. But along with being able to change colors, you're also able to make adjustments, rotate the image, change the size, and even duplicate the layer into a completely different document if you want to do that. So hit duplicate, hit OK, and as you can see, now you have another tab open up if you do want to use it. I don't really know why you would want to, but in case you do, I thought I would show you guys how to do that. And moving on from the image tab, we actually have the filter tab, which has a ton of fun tools that you can use, like messing around with the image and stuff like that. It's really awesome to just go ahead and like look at it yourself, but the things that I use from the filter tab are really just the blur features. And what I like to do is just go to Gaussian blur, click on that, and then as you can see, the image did blur out a bit, and I can change how much I want it to blur, if I want to blur at all, if I want to just blur a bit, if I want the whole thing to be like you can't even tell what's behind it. But I think that most of the blurs usually look good around this range or this range, maybe a bit more, so like around the 5 range or something like that. But it really just depends on what kind of picture you're using for your project. But the only reason that I ever find myself using the blur tool is usually when I have to add something to a background of a video, so I want to blur out the background so that the front like looks good and everyone's focusing on the front instead of the background. That's when I use the blur, but it's really up to you when you want to use it and stuff like that. I'm just teaching you guys the tools. And one of the main reasons that people give up with Photoshop right away, like before they even get into it, is because they don't understand how layers work. And I just showed you guys a bit of what layers are right here. This is what the layer tab is. So essentially, I guess the easiest way to describe layers is if you have a bunch of pieces of paper right like on top of each other, obviously the one that's on top is going to show up on top of everything else, and the one that's on the bottom is going to show up under everything else once you move everything else out of the way. So that's like the easiest way to explain it. So I'm just going to quickly get one more picture really quick. Let me find something. Okay, so I found a picture of PewDiePie, so I'm just going to quickly drag it onto here, and as you can see, he's on top of the picture right now. And the reason it's like that is because his layer is on top of my shoe layer right here. So if I was to drag PewDiePie under it, he's gone. But if we were to move the shoe layer over, he's still there, he's just under the shoe. So that's kind of how layers work, if that makes sense. Layers can get way more complicated than just this, and people who actually do designing for a living understand that. Essentially, that's just really how to explain layers, and you can add a bunch of more things. So if I was to add something else like this UW Madison thing, click it right here. As you can see, it's on top right now, but let's say I wanted PewDiePie on top of that. I'd move PewDiePie on top of that, but keep the shoes in the back because I want the shoes in the back, and I keep like this stuff right here because that's where I wanted it. And that's kind of how layers work. It's literally just like stacks of paper, and whatever's on top is going to stay on top, whatever's in the middle is going to stay in the middle, whatever's on the bottom is going to be all the way under everything else. And that's like the easiest way I can explain layers to you guys. If you guys do want me to make like a more in-depth video on how layers work, let me know and I'll be sure to do that. So I guess we can move out out of like this stuff. I don't really want to keep using these two pictures. I feel like the shoe is a really good sample picture to teach you guys how to use Photoshop with. So once you're here, I'm going to quickly teach you guys some of the tools. So the first one is the move tool. So you can essentially just move the layer that's right here. The next one is actually the marquee tool, and this allows you to make selections. So let's say I was to like make this selection right here, and then go ahead and go over to edit, cut, and then as you can see it's gone. But if I go over here and click on like edit paste, I have a new version of that in a new layer, and I can move it around to like right here if I wanted, but I'm just gonna bring it back right here. But obviously it doesn't look as good as it did prior, so I'm just gonna quickly go here, go to edit, step backwards, step backwards, step backwards, and as you can see we have it back. Overall it's just a selection tool of what you want to select. You can pick yourself what you want to do with the rest of it. Next up we have the lasso tools, and I personally like the magnetic one the best, but all of them are good for their own reasons. The normal lasso tool allows you to like make a selection of what you want, and once you have it you can like you can copy it by hitting Control-C, make a new layer, hit paste, and then you can move it around, and as you can see you have the exact same thing. Sorry if I'm talking kind of fast, it's just how it is, and if you guys don't understand something, please be sure to let me know in the comment section below. I do want you guys to learn Photoshop. It's really hard thing to learn at first, so that's why I'm making this video for you guys. But next up we do have the polygonal lasso tool, and I'm not really a big fan of this, but essentially you can just like click wherever you want like the shape to end, and then once you close it, that's your like selection, and then you can also move the selection around if you want to. It's really up to you how you want to do that. But if let's say you do make an error again, just hit edit and then step backward, edit, step backwards, and there you go, it's back to normal. And my favorite version of the lasso tool is the magnetic lasso tool, and this is my favorite because it actually does the work for you. So see, as you guys can see, I'm like kind of tracing the shoe, but all I'm doing is moving my mouse. Photoshop itself is actually making the selections of what I want because it just knows what I'm doing, if that makes sense. And say it does something like incorrect, all you have to do is just click the delete key on your keyboard. It gets rid of the like new box that it made, and then you can actually do manual selections of what you want on like whatever thing you're working with. So as you can see, I just basically traced the whole shoe really fast, but once I double click it selected it, and I could do the same thing I did prior, like cutting it, pasting it, editing it, stuff like that. The next thing that we do have is the crop tool, and this is if you want to make your picture smaller. So let's say if I only want to focus on the shoe right here, I could just do that and just click on the check mark, and now the picture went from all that big stuff to just this, and that's all we have. Say you do mess up, as again, edit, step backward, but I actually want to continue moving on, so I'm going to go back to step forwards, and we're going to continue from here. So next up we do have the brush tool right here, and we do have some other things, but I guess we can cover the eyedropper tool. But essentially right here, these are your colors. So we have white as our primary, and our background one is going to be some type of green, I guess, but again you can change it to whatever you want. But let's say that you want to use a color that's in the picture, but you can't find it exactly. Like say I want to use this like lace color right here, but man, I really can't find it in here. Is it this? No, that's not close enough. So when you're actually here, you have two options. When you're already in the color option menu, then you can just hover over the picture, click on what you want, and it will automatically change to that color. But say that you don't want to do that, you just want to quickly change the brush without going in there, you just click on the eyedropper tool, look for the color you want. So say I wanted this like black right here, just click on that. The secondary color changes to that color. I can change the color, and then I can start brushing on it with my paintbrush. And as you can see, it's kind of the same color. Obviously it looks different because it's a bit more solid, but overall it's the exact same thing. So from here I can just go ahead and click on Control-Z because I don't want that. But essentially that's how you would use the eyedropper tool. So I guess since I did that and the crop tool, we can move on to the brush. And the cool thing about brush is it's actually like really unique in its own way. And something really cool about that is that you can actually bump up the size a lot and then bring down the hardness. And if you do that, then the stroke is kind of like a soft paint brush. But if you were to bump up the hardness all the way, then it's gonna be like a solid, like as you can see, it's like literally a solid color. It didn't like the old one, it had like some fades on it. So I'm gonna quickly show you guys the like soft one more time, bring the hardness all the way down. I'm gonna make the size a bit less so I can color over the shoe. And as you can see, it's kind of like faded on the sides because it's more of like a soft stroke instead of a hard one. And that's kind of how the paintbrush works. And again, if you want to change your color, we can do orange or red or whatever, and same thing. The harder it is, then it's gonna like be more solid, softer. It just really depends on whatever you're working on at that said moment. Something that I know a lot of people actually like to do is just like finding a color that kind of looks like something that's in the image. So I guess the red that we already have is good. And then make a new layer, and then from there they actually just color around the whatever object they're using. Not a lot, but just a bit. And then what they do is lower the opacity until it brings out like some sort of like different, like it honestly looks like a completely different picture when you were to do that. And as you can see, I'm just coloring around the shoe, and it's just becoming red. And it has like a nice glow effect to it. It's really up to you. You can even get onto whatever object you're doing and stuff like that if you want to like mess around even more, but that's not something I'm interested in. And so you don't like the layer, all you have to do is just pick on the layer, bring it all the way down to the delete button, and release it. And as you can see, it's gone. Right here we do have the pen tool, and this is kind of like a hard tool to use. It's not that hard, but it's pretty hard for beginners to learn, and honestly I still don't know how to use it that well, but I have a pretty good idea of how to use it. So if it's something that you guys are looking for, I could make a video on that, but I don't think it would be a good idea to talk about it in this video just because it would take up a lot of the video time. So I'm just gonna quickly go back on the pen tool and continue on with the video. And so you can also add text, and there's multiple ways you can do it. If you do have the horizontal type mask tool on, it's gonna look kind of weird when you do it, and it's gonna just like when you click on OK, it's just gonna give you like the border of the text, and you don't want that. So I mean, maybe you do in your case, but not in my case. I want to teach you guys how to do normal text. So you just have to hold on it and click on horizontal type tool. From there you can just drag it out and type in whatever you want. So if I was just to type in I don't know, tutorial, and then as you can see, obviously the text is too big, so I can hit Control A to select it all, go here and bring it down to like maybe 60, and even then again that's too big, so 48. That's good for me. And once I hit check, as you can see the text is right there. If I want to make it bigger, I hit Control T, like the shortcut I taught you guys in the beginning, and I can drag it out as much as I want. So I'm gonna actually kind of like have it right here, so it's kind of big but not too big, and then just put it right there. Click on the checkbox and you should be good to go. Obviously, just do whatever you guys want to do. I'm just teaching you guys how the tools work and stuff like that. And let's say you want to change the color of the text. All you have to do is just click on it, highlight it all, go up here, and then just change it to whatever you want. Again, if you want to change it to something that's in the like image, you can use the eyedropper tool that comes built in whenever you actually go to change the color and change it to whatever you want. But let's say I want to do green. Obviously it's not going to look good because green with the background is just not going to look good, but I can hit the check mark and we're good to go right there. So now I want to show you guys blending options, and this is just going to end the video off. But essentially blending options allow you to do a ton of stuff. So let's say I want to add blending options to the text. All I have to do is either hit right click and go to blending options, or the quicker way to do it is just click on any blank space on the layer name, double click on it, and then the blending options box should show up. Obviously my things are showing up on the left because I do have a second monitor right there, but so that's the reason why mine are showing up to the left and yours are showing up in front of you. But from there you can add a bunch of things. So let's say I want to add an outer glow to the text. So as you can see, it kind of got a bit brighter, but I can click on normal, change the color to black, click OK, make the opacity higher, and essentially opacity is like the more visible an image is. So if it's the opacity is lower, it's gonna be harder to see that, so it's essentially just gonna be lighter, and if it's all the way up, then it's gonna be more visible to the eye. From here we can either pick softer or precise. So precise is just gonna go completely around the text. If we do softer, it's just gonna cover like the area around the text. I can bring the size up like that and bring the spread up as well with it, and as you can see, it's kind of adding like a glow to the picture, or the glow to the text. But let's say I don't want to do that and I want to do a drop shadow instead. Just click on drop shadow, and as you can see, a shadow just came up. I can bump up the opacity, make it normal again. I don't really recommend making the the distance too much, because then it's just gonna look kind of weird. It's gonna look like another piece of text. As you can see, it's kind of too far off, so I'd keep that low. But the spread you can actually make more, and then it looks better. Same thing for size. The bigger you make it, the more. But then again, it just looks more like an outer glow. But I'm just trying to teach you guys how some of the things work. So as you can see, personally, I think this looks kind of cool with its drop shadow. And let's say I want to do a color overlay. This is just a faster way to change the color to whatever you want. So if I did red and then I changed this to, I don't know, screen maybe, it kind of like mixes the colors together and makes yellow, stuff like that. And if I didn't want yellow, or if I want to lower the opacity, so it's kind of like a mix of yellow and green right now. And let's say I want to do a gradient instead of in color. All I would have to do is just uncheck on color overlay, go to gradient, and from here I can make a gradient. Obviously you guys aren't going to have the same thing as I do, but essentially I can add a gradient to the text, and honestly I think that looks kind of cool. So from there you can also add a stroke if you want to, and a stroke is essentially like an outline, and this is kind of what you guys can see me using in all of my thumbnails, but essentially that's what you would do for stroke. Bevel and emboss, it kind of just like makes like thing pop out a bit more, and it kind of looks kind of cool with the stroke, but I don't want to use it. I think the stroke looked kind of cool, but I think this looked even better. So from there, you just click on OK. And let's say that you want to add these same blending options onto another thing, but you don't want to do all of the work again. So let's say we had another text layer right here that said test, and as you can see, it's right there. But man, that looks really boring. I wish I could add all this stuff back to that text like layer. All you have to do is just go to the text layer that you actually edited already, right click on it, click on copy layer style, go to the one that you newly made, click on right click, and then click on paste. And as you can see, it's the exact same thing. And let's say you want to take one of the things away from it, you'll just have to click the little eyeball next to the to the little layer property, and then it would actually just go away or come back. And same thing goes with the drop shadow, the effect. You can do a ton of stuff, and let's say you even want to add it to your main image. So you can get rid of a layer by clicking on the eyeball right next to it, or you can delete it completely. But let's say that we want to add the same thing to the main image. Right click on the main image, hit paste layer style, and as you can see, the whole thing got wrecked. But the thing is, you obviously don't want it to cover up the whole image, so you can go to you can either double click on it, go to the gradient overlay, and lower the opacity so it has that like kind of effect. It has that effect to it where it's not like covering up the whole entire thing. Or you can just uncheck gradient overlay and it's gone. And let's say I actually want to keep the gradient overlay and maybe bump it up even a bit more. But the cool thing is, even the like stroke and drop shadow that we had, it came with it. So if I was to make the image smaller using the transform tool, as you can see, it has the drop shadow and stroke that we had prior. So I hope this is a basic enough video for how to use Photoshop for at least beginners, and I hope I was able to cover everything that you guys wanted. If there's something that I missed or skipped over, please be sure to let me know, and I'll be sure to cover that in my next video. Also, be sure to hit that like button and share this video with your friends who are also trying to use Photoshop and don't know how to start with it. And I guess to save it off, file, save as, desktop, and save it as whatever you want. So if I want to do a PNG, that's what you would save it as. If you want to do a JPEG, which is probably the best option because then you're actually able to make the image more high quality, click on that, drag this bar up all the way. It's going to take up a bit more space, but it's going to come out way nicer in the end. And from here, if I do go to my file explorer, I should be able to find it in here. And if I don't see it right away, all I have to do is just right click on some blank space, click on refresh, and as you can see, here it is. So if I double click on it, here's the image, and I can make it my Twitter header or really whatever I want to do. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Be sure to hit that like button and all that good stuff. Also leave some video suggestions in the comment section below, and I do have a Q&A coming out next week. Stay tuned for that, but anyways, I will see you guys in my next one. Peace.